Hi, I'm natekokernot, and this is my YouTube channel called Miracle Readiness. I'd like to introduce today's presentation by focusing on the intended meaning of those words, miracle readiness. It is to describe a state where you are ready to perform the miracles that are asked of you, which means, if you've been following along on the emotions playlist lately, being in a state of peace and love where you are prepared to respond with love to whatever comes your way. To say it another way, you're constantly in a state where your emotions don't threaten to come in and bugger things up. The magic pill I have to offer you in terms of a practice that will get you to this state more quickly is to feel your feelings and to keep them moving. The first half of that is about giving your attention to the feelings on the level of sensation. It is a mindfulness exercise, and if you'll recall, a mindfulness practice requires you to observe your thoughts from a neutral standpoint, wherein you don't necessarily judge the thoughts as good thoughts or bad thoughts, but more neutrally, as discerning whether they're true or not true thoughts. Now, the indication that it is not a true thought is that it doesn't bring you peace when you think of it. This is where mindfulness towards your emotions comes in. If you have developed an attentiveness to your emotions, or the body sensations, which they are at their rawest, then you can tell right away whether it's a true thought or an untrue thought because of whether it feels comfortable or uncomfortable while you're thinking it. It helps at this point to drop the story. 1, because the story is not the emotion, and 2, because the story, when entertained while feeling the sensation, turns the experience into something like a cocktail, while just attending to the sensation on its own is more like a mocktail. The mocktail won't give you a hangover. That's the simple vindication for the practice. When we conflate the emotions with the story, as though the story is the cause for the emotions, we're getting farther away from the truth and the healing potential that the emotion has to offer us. I've said before that the emotions are the facts, whereas the story is rarely full of any facts. So when we're tending to how we feel, we are the most present we can be. Feeling your emotions fully is what puts you in the present moment. And guess what? You are not able to enjoy the bounty of peace and joy and love in any time but the present moment. Why? Because it is always the present moment. When else is there, really? If you're busy avoiding feeling your feelings, you're unconsciously, at least, choosing not to experience love, peace, and joy. It is a choice. If you don't see it as a choice, then you're still at the mercy of the world, but only because you believe you are. If you're feeling the feelings but choosing not to keep them in motion, either by venting them in a safe way or by doing activities that burn them off, then you're risking isolation and poor health. The isolation comes from feeling like nobody sees you or knows who you are, which is likely true, but only because you haven't shown them. And the poor health because I'm still convinced myself, and I have my own experience to back this up, that stagnant emotions are the root cause of our physical dis-ease. I'll say one more thing about the practice of feeling your feelings. When you really get into it, the negative emotions don't feel so bad after only a few seconds. When looked at neutrally and without the story attached, they're just another feeling, neither good nor bad. They can also be viewed as a good piece of evidence that you are not an inanimate object like a rock. They are, in other words, life-affirming. I've turned many negative emotions into this same life-affirming experience simply by letting myself feel them and being inquisitive towards them. I've also found that it's getting harder and harder to get a reaction out of me since I've started in on this practice. I'm not triggered hardly ever by anything because instead of trying to find ways around the emotions I experience, I've learned that going directly through them is the fastest way to help them subside. I hope you'll give it a try. It takes some practice and some willingness to experience some discomfort. I also hope that you'll like and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already done that, and please leave comments and feedback below as well. And once again, you can find me at my website at miraclereadiness.com and also at substack at natekokernot. Thanks again for being with me, and I'll see you next time.